I'm Liyana Hassanel and this is Nightline, news making the headlines. Government committed to separating powers of AG and public prosecutor. And enough rice stockpiled to meet domestic needs. Good morning. The Unity Government is committed to the separation of powers between the Attorney General, AG, and the Public Prosecutor, PP, to ensure the integrity of the legal institution. Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Law and Institutional Reform, Datuk Sri Azalina Othman Syed, has rapped the opposition for failing to separate the roles when they were in power before, but constantly raising the issue of selective prosecution now.
Kenapa masa yang berhormat kerajaan tak nak pisahkan AG? Kenapa tak pisah? Bila yang berhormat kena, selective prosecution. Bila belah sini kena, padan muka. Apa hal? Kerajaan Madani ini komited kepada tata kelola yang lebih adil. Itu sebab kami ni, hashtag dia, we walk the talk. Mereka hashtag, they don't walk and they don't talk. Silakan yang berhormat.
Azalina said this when winding up the debate on the 12th Malaysia Plan midterm review at the special Dewan Rakyat sitting on Monday. She further said that the government would conduct an empirical study before finalizing the proposal for the separation of powers between the AG and the PP. She noted that under Article 145 of the Federal Constitution, the AG has the power, exercisable at his discretion to institute, conduct, or discontinue any proceedings for an offence. In fact, Azalina said many cases had been dropped before, even during the tenure of previous Attorney Generals, including Tan Sri Tommy Thomas. Malaysia's rice supply is sufficient to cover domestic needs for another 4 to 5 months, and there is no urgent need to use the stockpile. Agriculture and Food Security Minister Datuk Sri Muhammad Sabu told the Dewan Rakyat that the country now has a stockpile of 900,000 metric tons of rice, consisting of 250,000 metric tons of government stockpiles and 650,000 metric tons of commercial stock.
Saya amat memahami hakikat bahawa isu kekurangan bekalan beras di pasaran kita tidak hanya akan selesai melalui langkah intervensi yang saya sebutkan sebentar tadi. Namun langkah intervensi tersebut dilaksanakan bersekali dengan usaha peningkatan produktiviti padi. Sekiranya pengeluaran padi bertambah, insya-Allah kekurangan bekalan beras akan dapat diselesaikan dan import dapat dikurangkan.
In his speech, Mohammed also said that the shortage of local rice occurred when there was panic buying among consumers and businesses, following the increase in the price of imported white rice. He added that the ministry is implementing initiatives to increase the country's rice production in order to reach the rice sufficiency rate SSR target of 80% by 2030. He said that negotiations will be made with the Indian government to find a suitable solution over the rice export restrictions made by India. Meanwhile, Mohammed also pointed out that there is no plan to ban the sale of local white rice to foreigners in the country. Meanwhile, Deputy Domestic Trade and Cost of Living Minister Fuzia Saleh said the ministry is expected to launch a Rahmah rice sale initiative to help lighten the burden of the people affected by the price hike of imported rice, as well as the absence of local rice.
Ini untuk membantu rakyat, membantu rakyat yang memang betul-betul tak mampu, supaya mereka dapat membeli beras keperluan harian mereka dengan harga yang kita subsidikan melalui peruntukan yang telah diberikan oleh pihak kerajaan, diluluskan oleh Parlimen sebanyak 100 juta dan diumumkan oleh Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri tambahan 50 juta.
Fuzia said the mechanism for the scheme, known as Jualan Rahmah Beras, would be announced soon. And while paddy and rice came under the Agriculture and Food Security Ministry's purview, Fuzia said her ministry was aware of complaints from the public following a hike in the price of imported rice. Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim had previously said that the price of locally produced white rice would not increase, despite the price of imported rice increasing by 36%. The government is conducting a review of the Aboriginal Peoples Act 1954, Act 134, which among others involved registering marriage and land ownership of the Orang Asli community. Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi said as a start, a legal framework development study and mechanism for the administration of Orang Asli marriage and divorce customs in Peninsular Malaysia has commenced on September 15th.
Pelan strategik ini telah pun dirangka dan dipersiapkan terutamanya bagi mempertingkatkan kualiti hidup masyarakat orang asli melalui penyediaan infrastruktur yang lengkap di seluruh pengkampungan orang asli, dan perkara ini sering dibangkitkan, namun kita teruskan usaha-usaha ini dengan sebaik mungkin.
He added the issue of Orang Asli land, which will also be considered in the review of Act 134, needs to be studied comprehensively, as it involves differences as well as overlapping authorities involving the federal and state governments. On Orang Asli students, Ahmad Zahid said 350 Orang Asli students have been accepted into universities last year, which exceeded the original ministry target of 300 people, while for 2023, the government is targeting to increase the number to 400 students. Empowering the M40 group will be among the focuses in the 2024 budget, which will be tabled in October. Second Deputy Finance Minister Stephen Sim Chi Keong said the middle class needed assistance and to be empowered, as they also contribute to the country's economy. Sim said due to the COVID-19 pandemic, 20% of the M40 fell into the B40 category. According to Sim, those in the M40 group need to be given attention as well, as they were the economy generators and workforce, and they are the ones who will spend in the local economy. Meanwhile, the other focuses of the budget included the small medium enterprises, or SMEs, which make up about 98% of the country's economy. Sim said the government wants to help entrepreneurs restructure and add value to their industry, adding that he wants to see high-tech and high-value industries to be brought in. He added that the government does not want the businesses to just prosper, but also to be healthy, strong and smart, so that they can compete regionally and globally, not just in the country. Now, an economist Nightline spoke with, Professor Jeffrey Williams, welcomed the government's initiative to empower the M40 group in the 2024 budget. This could be a significant step towards ensuring prosperity in the country moving forward.
The M40 groups have been squeezed very badly. Among some of the things that the government can do is to improve the income opportunities for people in the M40 group. And we have various arrangements for flexible working time and working from home, but these are voluntary at the moment. And if the government were to make these mandatory, that is to encourage companies to accept requests for flexible working arrangements from their employers more, or to incentivize requests from their employees for flexible working arrangements. This would help to free up some time for people in the middle income groups, and that would allow them to move into freelance activities, gig economy type of activities, perhaps set up micro enterprise operations, and to earn income through secondary sources.
As for another economist, Muhammad Afzal Nizam Abdul Rashid said this could alleviate the burden of the M40 group in facing the rising cost of living, as they have received less attention before.
I think all income cohorts are affected by the rise of cost of living. For instance, if you look at the top 20% in terms of their mean household income in 2022, it stands about 19,652 ringgit. If you were to deflate the number with the consumer price index, the real income is about 15,445 ringgit. And the difference between the two is about 4,206 ringgit. And similarly, if you look at the M40, the mean household income for 2022 stands at about 7,971 ringgit. And if you deflate or adjust it with the consumer price index, the real mean household income for the M40 is about 6,265 ringgit. And the difference between the real and the nominal income is about 1,706 ringgit.
At the same time, Williams also said that emphasis should also be given to SMEs.
It would be much better for the government to have a holistic approach to SME support. This would involve removing SMEs from taxation below a very generous threshold, simply not applying taxation to SMEs. It would also include allowing SMEs to apply much more easily for general grants rather than specific grants focused on training or e-commerce or specific activities that the government has dreamed up on its list of priorities. And it's also important not to focus too much on startup enterprises, but to look at those companies that are already in existence and to see what can be done in order to help them to sustain their current business, to grow their current business, and to scale up their current business.
Malaysia is carrying out a study on the taxation of the palm oil industry, which is expected to be completed next year. According to Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Sri Fadilah Yusof, the government will also look at the issue of palm oil cess, which has been burdening the palm oil industry.
Kementerian mengambil maklum akan pengenaan windfall tax ataupun windfall levy atau cukai luar biasa ke atas industri sawit. Walau bagaimanapun, Kementerian sedang melaksanakan kajian pengenaan cukai industri sawit dan berharap ia dapat diselesaikan pada tahun hadapan.
Fadilah, who is also the Plantation and Commodities Minister, said the matter has also been discussed with the Finance Ministry. Besides that, he said the government took seriously the issue of threats from the European Union, EU, and its implications for the palm oil industry. He noted that various actions have been taken to ensure the palm oil industry is not affected, including intensifying efforts to have the EU recognize Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil MSPO certification as a key condition for compliance with the EU's deforestation regulation EUDR. After this breather, landslide in Democratic Republic Congo claims at least 17 lives. Stay tuned. Onto the foreign front. At least 17 people were killed by a landslide in the northwestern Democratic Republic of the Congo, caused by torrential rains, with warnings that the toll could rise as rescuers sift through rubble beneath collapsed homes. The disaster was reportedly took place along the Congo River in the town of Lisao in Mongala province on Sunday, where the victims lived in homes that were built at the foot of a mountain. Officials said the death toll is still provisional as bodies are still under the rubble, adding that torrential downpours have caused a lot of damage, including a landslide that swallowed up several houses. Governor Cesar Limbaya Mbagisa said machinery was desperately needed to help clear away the debris and to save any survivors. Poverty and poor infrastructure have made communities in such areas more vulnerable to extreme weather, such as heavy rains, which are becoming more frequent and intense in Africa due to climate change. In Australia, 3 people have been injured after a stabbing at the Australian National University, ANU, in Canberra. According to authorities, 2 women, both aged 20, were stabbed at about 2:45 p.m. local time on Monday, while a 3rd man who was also assaulted sustained minor injuries. They added that the 2 women were taken to hospital, one in a critical condition and the other in a stable condition. Following the incident, officials have confirmed that a 24-year-old man who is not an ANU student is in police custody and no other people are being sought by police in connection to the incident. So far, no specific motive for the incident had been identified. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi will be in Russia this week for security talks, arriving in Moscow just a day after North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un wrapped up his own visit to the country. Wang Yi's visit comes as an increasingly isolated Russia seeks support from its international allies for its war against Ukraine. And according to the Chinese Foreign Ministry, the visit, which will run from Monday to Thursday, will involve a strategic security consultation between China and Russia. The top envoy arrives in Russia just 2 days after talks in Malta with U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. Washington and Beijing described those talks as candid, substantive, and constructive, as both nations are looking to stabilize their rocky relationship, having seen bilateral tensions soar due to their conflicting views on multiple issues in Europe and East Asia. Heidenheim's sports, football, the German Bundesliga. Heidenheim's on-loan midfielder Aaron Dingsy scored twice in a 4-2 win against his parent club Werder Bremen to give the promoted side their first ever victory. Tim Kleindienst gave Heidenheim an early lead from the penalty spot, following a handball error from the visitors. The home side then doubled their advantage on the stroke of halftime through Dingsy. Bremen's Marvin Duksch pulled one back early in the second half when he headed home the rebound from the saved penalty. And Bremen went on to miss further good chances before Mitchell Weiser finally equalized in the 64th. Dingsy, however, restored the lead 4 minutes later before Jan-Niklas Besti rifled in the fourth to seal the win. With the win, Heidenheim climbed to the 11th spot with 4 points, a point behind Bremen. Turning to tennis, the 2023 Guadalajara Open. Number 13 seed Elise Mertens advanced to the second round by defeating Janina Wickmeyer. The Belgian faced no trouble as she defeated Wickmeyer in straight sets 7-6, 6-2. With the win, Mertens, ranked number 29, will face Canadian Leila Fernandez in the next round. Joining her was Karolina Pliskova. Pliskova began her week with a first-round win after the Czech, who seeded 16th in the Mexican tournament, got through 7-5, 6-2 against Japan's Anna Shibahara in 1 hour and 22 minutes. She will play American Hailey Baptiste next. In another match, Canadian wildcard Eugenie Bouchard defeated Mexican Renata Zarazua 6-1, 7-6 to advance to the second round. Bouchard, ranked number 218, will face number 7 seed Veronika Kudermetova next. We're going for a short break. When we return, 3 senior citizens killed in pre-dawn fire. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Rising costs and stricter insurance budgets are now leaving even insured patients without guaranteed care. This is why stakeholders are calling for regulatory changes to remedy the situation. FMT's Danish Rajareza has the report.
These days, private healthcare and medical insurance are necessities rather than luxuries. Those with such coverage take comfort in knowing they won't need to fork a lot of money to receive treatment. Nevertheless, some issues persist, according to Dr. Kujit Singh, president of the Association of Private Hospitals Malaysia. He says some private hospitals are having issues in claiming full reimbursement for the treatment provided.
The reason is healthcare costs has gone up and the insurance companies may be having difficulty in increasing the premiums.
Kuljit says while certain procedures are subsidized by private hospitals, they cannot continue to do so in the long term.
we are also having an increased healthcare costs in procuring equipment, maintaining staff, keeping our standards, and also returning back profits to our shareholders.
To protect the interest of patients and private hospitals, Kuljit is now advocating for the establishment of a regulatory body to oversee insurance payouts. He says this will ensure access to private healthcare for insured patients. Former Deputy Health Minister Lee Boon-chai agrees.
There should be ideally a regulatory authority over the conduct of the MCO, so that if there is any grievances, then that authority can be an arbitrator to arbitrate the payment. And that authority also should have some role in ensuring that the MCO's conduct are ethical and it is transparent and it is not sort of arbitrarily.
Presently, insurance companies are regulated by Bank Negara Malaysia. In terms of a regulatory body, Lee says a two-pronged approach is needed, one to regulate the financial aspect and the other to regulate health matters.
It could be a joint authority. That means they are regulated by two authorities, one under Bank Negara as to the financial dealing. I think Bank Negara has got requirement for them to ensure adequate capitalization and policy, and what policy they can come up with. But on the medical part of it, I think it's better to be under Ministry of Health.
As a short-term measure, Kuljit says closer cooperation with insurers would also help.
Regulation will take time because the government will have to enact an act in Parliament in order to have the regulation. But if we can also work something out without having a regulation and working as partners, I think that would be a better way for the time being.
Danish Rajareza, FMT for Nightline.
In Kedah, 3 senior citizens perished in a pre-dawn fire that also destroyed a row of 8 shop houses in Jalan Sungai Emas, Kota Kuala Muda, near Sungai Petani on Monday morning. Kedah Fire and Rescue Department Director Awang Hidsel Awang Bujang said firefighting teams from the Tikam Batu, Sungai Petani and Kuala Muda stations were sent to the scene after a distress call at 1:12 a.m. According to Awang, firemen managed to prevent the fire from spreading and brought it under control at about 3 a.m. The first victim was reportedly found at 3:20 a.m., the second at 6 a.m., and the third at 10:15 a.m. All the bodies, 2 women and a man, were found near the exit door of the same shop house. The victims were identified as 61-year-old Lee Chiu Fong, her husband, 66-year-old Lim Yang Kui, and her mother, 92-year-old Yong Sui Lan. Authorities believed that the fire began from a shop house selling school uniforms, but the cause of the fire is still unknown. A highly decomposed body was found with 18 stab wounds at an oil palm estate in Pulau Sebang, Melaka on Saturday. According to State Police Chief Datuk Zainal Samah, the body was discovered by a member of the public at about 10 a.m. and the male victim is believed to have been murdered. Zainal said the case was originally classified under sudden death, but was reclassified after the post-mortem revealed injuries to the victim's torso and head, believed to be from a sharp object. Police were also looking into whether the case was linked to a missing persons report of a local man lodged at the Tampin District Police Headquarters in Negeri Sembilan. A DNA test involving the family members of the missing person has also been carried out. The case is being probed under Section 302 of the Penal Code for murder. As we conclude Nightline this time around, let's take a look as Egypt inaugurates a newly restored Ottoman mosque built by the 16th century governor Sulaiman Pasha al-Khadim that lies within the citadel that has dominated Cairo's skyline for centuries. I'm Liyana Hassanel. Thank you for watching and be well, Malaysia.